Hi, this is New to the Street Leadership. I'm Jane King.
I'm Matt Doherty. Each month on New to the Street Leadership, powered by Sector Spider ETFs, we will focus on the leadership journey of our guests and what they learned along the way. We will talk to amazing leaders in both the private and public sectors.
We'll dig deep and we'll speak to accomplished business leaders and discuss how a leadership platform is essential to meet goals and inspire others.
It's brought to you monthly by Sector Spider ETFs. Let's talk leadership.
You could buy a single stock and go all in on one company, or own the sector and invest in keeping good company. Is it so radical to be so rational? Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Go to sectorspiders.com for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully. Sector Spiders, the 11 sectors of the S&P 500.
Matt Higgins is a founder, operator, investor, educator. No matter the role, he says he's always believed in trusting your instincts and never outsourcing your judgment. That mindset has led him down an unconventional path from poverty to investor. He grew up in Queens, hawking flowers on street corners and walking into McDonald's to put food on the table for his family. Then over the next decade, he earned a law degree from Fordham at Night, began a career as the youngest press secretary in New York City history, where he helped manage the global press response to the September 11th tragedy, and went on to become an executive for two NFL teams, found and invested in some of the most dynamic brands through RSE Ventures, and became a shark on ABC's Shark Tank, and also an executive fellow at Harvard Business School. So Matt, what an amazing story that you have, and such a variety of experiences. Just start with that. Like, how did you get where you are?
Wow, thank you, by the way. Quite an intro. It's always nice to hear what my funeral might sound like, but no, I think actually, honestly, desperation. I grew up the product of extreme poverty. Those words lose their resonance, right? What does that mean? Eating government cheese, like you said, selling flowers on street corners, but more importantly, really trying to take care of a sick parent. Without healthcare, without access to help and support. So you go through these phases, fantasy, maybe some man's going to come and save us. And then eventually frustration, depression, and then defiance. And my whole career was born of defiance, of saying that, where I began will not dictate where I end up. And so I came up with a hack when I was a young kid, which was to drop out of high school. And parents, close your ears, and kids. But the bottom line is, back in the day, if you took a GED and you did well enough, you could actually go to any college in America. And my objective was to get a higher paying job. And that was my burn the boats moment, which I wrote this book about, which is, in order for me to go through with this radical plan that I was sure was correct for myself and everyone else said was crazy, I needed to self-sabotage. I needed to eliminate my retreat or burn the boats. And I did that by failing every single class in high school, except for typing. And I'm still type 100 words a minute today. And I went forward with it. And the rest is history. And I tapped into what Warren Buffett talks about in the financial context, which is compounding as the most important financial principle. Compounding applies equally to your career too. So by fast forwarding all this professional achievement, it gave me extra years to reap exponential return. So I wrote this book to try to share that formula with everyone else.
I was a backup plan guy. I mean, I was in college. I was played basketball at North Carolina, and I had a summer internship on Wall Street, thinking if it didn't work out, I would work on Wall Street. It didn't work out, and I worked on Wall Street. I hated it, and I went back to basketball. And then when I was coaching basketball, there was no other backup plan. That was it. And so it really is very, very powerful. How are you burning boats now?
Well, and I think just to get on that point real quick, the reason why I wrote the book, and I feel like I was the right one to write this book, is that doesn't come easy for me or naturally. My book is my accountability partner.
Right.
Because I have dealt with anxiety all my life. I've dealt with the trauma of everything I went through. And the reality is I have learned to catalyze that anxiety in order to be able to propel me to greater heights. And the way I do that is a simple 4-step risk mitigation process that I undertake every time I go through it. And to just distill it, it's thoroughly analyzing what's the worst that's going to happen. It's the anxiety of unlitigated, damage. So what am I doing now? How am I burning the boats? I'm burning the boats for this book because every day I wake up from a DM from somebody on earth who feels seen by my book, who doesn't say, oh, here's some middle-aged rich white guy on Shark Tank who possibly can't connect with me, and say, oh, because of the details I share in the book, they feel like they can meet me somewhere, and now they're receptive to the message. Every day I wake up from somebody who's made a radical change in their life that they wouldn't have made if they didn't read the book. I'm never the genesis. I don't install the idea, but I give permission to pursue the idea. And so I don't think anything I've done in my life or my career, and maybe ever will do, is more important than me getting this book out, because I'm looking at the impact it's making every day on people's lives. And it's pretty amazing. And it's what I set out to do with this book, but now seeing it actually happening. So the answer is I burned the boats for my book. I actually took the Chinese phrase that means burn the boats from 206 BC. It's Po Fu Chen Zhou. And I had it tattooed all the way down my arm so that I don't forget.
Did you really? Did you really?
I can show it to you if you want to see it.
Yeah. That is very Queens right there.
It is
getting
quite
a
well. I'm
tattoo.
going to show it. I'm going to show how we do it. It is very.
Okay,
here it
let's
is.
see.
Oh, wow.
That's
It's
awesome.
not, see, and everyone's like, oh, I thought you would just get like a little thing. I was like, no, the burn the boats guy can't get like a little tattoo. It's got to be down my whole room.
Well, it's the kind of thing that survives you too. I mean, it's like, you know, a great classical piece of music that Beethoven wrote, we still listen to today. People are going to be reading your books for.
No, thank you. And the reason why the tattoo is important is it's another teaching moment to show that just because you have insights and wisdom doesn't mean that you're able to institute them yourselves. To be human is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Even for me, I put this on my arm so that every day I'm in the mirror. I said, commit. You said you were going to commit. And that's what all of us have to do. So I think the problem with Instagram culture is everything is packaged and airbrushed, and it's like you make people feel like you've got it figured out and they don't. And that creates separation. So I'm always trying to lower myself by virtue of the book and my tattoo to show that even I have to work on commitment.
What is the thing you've done? So many amazing things. I mean, I really, when I read your book, I just had to get, I was going to get you on an interview, sooner or later, because it's just an amazing story. What's the thing you may be most proud of?
This is more abstract. I think when we go through terrible things in our lives, my upbringing, everybody's got something, right? We have 2 choices to make. You're going to get the other side of that, and you're going to say, you know what? No one gave me anything. I walked 5 miles to school. You will too, son, right? Or you could say, because I didn't have this thing, I know how impactful that thing would have been by virtue of its absence, if only I had it. And I'm going to try to provide that from someone else because I could imagine the impact it's going to make. So it's a long way of saying I provide scholarships for single mothers because I know what it was like to be a single mom, watching my mother trying to transcend her circumstances, how hard it is to survive and aspire at the same time. And so I think that the most impactful thing is the choice I made, which is the greatest impact I can make in life is to ameliorate suffering. And I'm not going to be bitter, and I'm going to save space for empathy, and I'm going to do little things like those little scholarships or anything else.
Wow. Is there a question that we should have asked that we didn't?
No, I think this was fantastic. I mean, you should have asked me to show you the tattoo, and then I did it anyway. So other than that, I think we covered it.
I'm glad you did.
I was glad it was on your arm.
Yeah.
I know it's not, I wanted it down there. My wife is like, not, you can't show it in speeches. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think this is a great story of kind of the mechanics of business, data, but then also the emotion, human side of it too. I mean, it's a really interesting combination of both.
No, and I think lastly, just to leave everyone, I mean, I know this to be true, and anyone who's done something really great, Bezos and Musk will tell you that the greatest innovations and breakthroughs are gut sandwiches. They begin with an intuition in your gut. You try to buttress it with some degree of data and validation, but at the end of the day, the green light comes from intuition. And where people get stuck is they think data is going to give them the green light. And the reason why data doesn't is that opportunity arrives before the tipping point of evidence. When something's an opportunity, there isn't a lot of validation for it. There isn't a lot of data for it. And that should make you excited. Instead, people will go to their best friend and be like, what do you think? And they're like, I think you're crazy. And then your dream dies. So I just want to leave you with this idea. Remember gut sandwich. If you got a great insight, at the end of the day, there shouldn't be a lot of data to support it. There shouldn't be a lot of validation to agree with you. And you just got to go based on instinct.
That's where the magic is. So in business, thank you so much, Matt. Wonderful to meet you, hear about the book and hear your story. And thank you as always, Matt Doherty.
That was awesome. Matt
Thank
Higgins,
you.
thank you so much. I'm a big fan.
Thank
Good
you
luck
so
with,
much.
Good luck with everything and the sale of your book.
When a market shift is around the corner, invest in an entire sector and get ahead of the curve. Is it so radical to be so rational? Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Go to sectorspiders.com for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully. Sector Spiders, the 11 sectors of the S&P 500.
Ray Titus is the CEO of United Franchise Group, a global leader for entrepreneurs, which has elevated franchising from a career to a calling. His philosophies on growth, positive attitude, and family have influenced his career as he developed the company from conception to international expansion. Since the beginning of his career, Ray's enterprising spirit was cultivated by a franchising legend. His father, Roy Titus, is the founder of Minute Maid Press. Their shared appreciation for innovation and resourcefulness is fueled by Ray's determination, and that all laid the groundwork for what has become an established and respected community within the world's franchising industry. This year, United Franchise Group is celebrating its 35th anniversary, and United Franchise Group has more than 1,600 locations in more than 60 countries. With me is Ray Titus and co-host Matt Doherty. Great to have you here. And Ray, let's just start with, I'm really curious about the influence your father had on you and the impact of running a family-owned business. Tell me about that.
Well, it's been incredible growing up in an entrepreneurial home right here in New York and out on Long Island. As you said, my dad started Minuteman Press in the 70s, and I grew up with that business. And he taught me at an early age. In fact, my 8th grade school paper was how to start a franchise company. So,
Wow.
so it started early on, and I was gravitating toward basketball and playing basketball and coaching. And as I got older, it just became really apparent that I could apply everything I learned in sports to business, from getting there early, hard work and practicing and everything else that we had to do to be successful in the business, and just fell in love with franchising.
Talk more about that. I talk a lot about business is a contact sport. So the transferable skills, the transferable lessons you learn by playing basketball, growing up on Long Island, how do they carry over to United Franchise Group and your leadership?
Well, I think it all starts with that hard work, Matt. There was a saying growing up, is he a gym rat or is he not a gym rat?
Right.
And I was a gym rat, okay? So I worked really, really hard. I didn't have the physical skills. I couldn't jump as well as a lot of the other players. I wasn't as quick as a lot of the other players, but I worked really hard at it. And I could see that if you worked really hard, you could get there. And there were a lot better players that didn't get scholarships when I did get one. And so that lesson taught me that in business, if I just worked a lot harder than the other people, that I could make it. And that's kind of where it started. And then it went to, okay, how do we groom our next leadership? How do we bring people along? How do we move forward with it? But to me, franchising just resonated because I was really goal-oriented. And so being goal-oriented, you could sit down with entrepreneurs and you could help them reach their goal of owning their own business and becoming successful in their own business. So
I find it interesting that you were thinking about becoming a coach, but you are a coach, right? I've been to your offices. You lead like a coach. I think sometimes we talk, and I interviewed David Novak on this show, CEO of Yum Brands.
Yep.
I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I do know.
You might know him personally.
Yeah.
And he calls his leaders not bosses, but coaches. And it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
I go into your offices. You have a library with a lot of books. You're a teacher, you're a coach. It's just you're doing it in business. Talk about that mindset and how that has helped you as a leader.
I think early on I had, well, some would say the misfortune, I would say the pleasure of hiring my father-in-law. And it was one of those very interesting, I remember my dad sitting me down going, you know, this has to work. If it doesn't work, you're in trouble. And so he said I wouldn't do it, but I did
Wow.
it. And JJ brought a mentorship and a lifelong learning attitude that I embraced and love to this day. Promote with everyone on our team is lifelong learning. And if you embrace always being open to new ideas and like AI or ChatGPT, and not being afraid of these new things that are coming out, but embracing them and looking for the silver linings in everything that we do, that's really led us to tremendous success over the years.
So you're the boss, you're the CEO. You're supposed to know everything, right?
No.
But like obviously you don't, and you're okay with that.
Yep.
Like that vulnerability, I think people lean into that as opposed to you coming into a conference room and saying, we're going to do it this way. You're curious.
Yeah.
And so you let things bubble to the top. How would you tell the audience to show up at work or in a board meeting?
Well, the first piece of advice I would give is what my dad gave me early on is don't try and be right in the beginning of a meeting, be right at the end of the meeting. And so what that led me to stop doing is coming into a board meeting and making statements and then trying to spend the next hour justifying my statement and trying to be right. And instead, ask questions of everyone and pull it together. And at the end of the meeting, if it comes out that that was the right way, and a lot of times it is, but it's so much better when it comes out of their mouths than when it comes out of mine. I could just come in and say, hey, do that, do that, do that, but it doesn't work the same way. And so I did get a chance to coach for about 10 years with the kids. And I love that part of my life with the boys and coaching the teams that I coached. But what was pretty neat was I always liked to ref when I coached. And so I was in the middle of the court always. Mm-hmm. And I would blow the whistle and stop the game and say, okay, now why did you go that way? Why didn't you pass it to that guy standing in the corner wide open? Okay, and that's where you can go back to business and go, okay, let's stop. Don't be in such a rush to try to be right. Ask people questions, ask more questions, and listen, and it may change your opinion as you go along. And a lot of times it does. And look, any good leader, any good coach has to get talent. Mm-hmm. You're not a good coach without talent, as Bill Belichick's proven the last couple of years, right? So you go take a step back and you go, okay, but utilize that talent. And I'm not illegal. I have a great in-house counsel. I'm not an accountant. I have a great CFO. So I go through, and if you don't have that, get it. Mm-hmm. It's too many people hold on to bad people too long.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
yes.
I'm curious too, because franchising is a different business than we've talked to CEOs who've run employees, but you're really working with entrepreneurs.
Yep.
How is that different? Is it easier? Is it more difficult? How would you gauge that?
Way harder. Way harder. Like anybody, they equate franchise or franchisee to herding cats, okay? You want to promote entrepreneurship and for people to run and manage their own business, call their own shots, but then at the same breath, you need them to protect the brand and to not do anything that's going to hurt other franchisees. And so you have to play well in the sandbox also as in franchising. So it's this balance between that. It's that we want them to be entrepreneurs. We get our best ideas from our franchisees. Mm-hmm. As they build and grow their business, that's how you do it. At least that's how we do it. We don't make decisions in a boardroom in West Palm Beach. We make them with franchisees all over the world that give us the insight. They're on the front lines. They know what works and what doesn't work. We just have to facilitate those great ideas out there. And that's how we've run our company.
How do you find what that trigger might be and suppress it before it comes out, but if it comes out, you got to clean up in aisle 3.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But how do you, but what
I don't think, Matt, you want to suppress it as much. Like you don't want to have those all the time. And obviously, if that's happening all the time, you're probably not a real good leader.
Right.
But if it happens once in a while, you're pushing the limit, which is good in one way, because that's where greatness is.
Right.
Greatness is there. But if you suppress it, you're not going to get to that line and past that line for great things and great ideas and innovation and other things and making moves with the company, with the different people. It's just now going back and going, hey, I said something I shouldn't have said, and that wasn't right. This is what I really believe. I don't really believe that, but here's the deal. And it's being honest and straight up. And I think that goes a long way. Maybe sending a card if it's somebody that's not there, or, just clean it up a little bit. Yeah. Own it and clean it up and move forward. We're all going to make mistakes. I don't have all the answers, but I have to I need to be like, we're the facilitator for our franchisees to get good ideas to other franchisees. I have to be the facilitator in our organization for good ideas, or to kind of smooth things forward and move things forward.
Last question. Yeah. Succession planning. Your dad handed you the ball. What did he do? And then you're going to hand off the ball. Then what do you do? I've been there as the head coach at North Carolina, and Dean Smith, legendary coach, Bill Guthridge, the two people that I followed, had offices in the building. There was a presence and a shadow, and that was good to some degree, but it also could be not so good. So when you hand off the ball, what are you going to do?
It's a great question, Matt. And looking back on it, my older brother, Bob, had it much harder than I did. Because my dad kind of semi-passed the ball to him. But he passed the ball to me, and I moved the company to Florida. And so he had him a lot more. Did you do that
intentionally to get away?
Not from him, but away from everybody else, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I used the cost of offices as the excuse, but the real reason behind the scenes is we were in the shadows of all these other people, and they weren't going to let us be more successful. And moving to Florida was one of the best things we ever did for the business. For me, the company is in really good shape. It's in a great position. We have 10 brands, 1,600 franchisees in almost 80 countries worldwide, and so it's a different set of circumstances, but it is still passing the ball, right? So, but I look at it as I'm going to pass several balls. I'm not just going to pass one ball to one person. I'm going to try to establish, how is this going to work? How is that going to work? And how is this going to work? And then they're going to take it from there. And I'm not a control freak. I think every entrepreneur starts out as a control freak, and I'm a recovered control freak. Okay? I'd like to think I am.
Hi, my name's Ray.
Yeah, I thought this was an intervention here. Right? But seriously, I think that every successful entrepreneur has to be a control freak to some degree in the beginning, but you can't run a big business if you're a control freak. Right. And so you have to delegate, and you have to let other people do 80% or 90% of what even you could have done. And so I think when we go, it's going to be, and I make that move down the road, and I'm 60 years young, okay? And everybody complains about the president being 81 years old and how old these presidents and people are up there in Washington, but I don't complain at all, because it makes me look really young, right? And so I'm like, hey, if the president's 81, look at him.
You got a long runway.
20 years, man. I can't. But seriously, from my standpoint, I think when we do that, it's going to be a little bit more systematic. It's going to be a little bit more, there'll be outsiders involved, and there'll be boards, and there'll be other things involved. But there will be that, some tough decisions that have to be made when you have 6 boys, and, leadership doesn't work in a committee.
No.
We all know that's where great ideas go to die. And,
right.
we have a hiring committee so we don't hire as many people. I'm serious. You ever want to slow something down, you just start a committee. Just start a committee. That's it.
So true.
You just start it. We got a hiring committee meeting once a month, and we go through the list, and yes, no, yes, no, whatever, and then we do it, right? But just it slowed down.
Yeah.
When we didn't have that, it was a free-for-all. It was chaos, and so you've got to systemize it, and I think that'll happen with us, man.
Gotcha.
Ray, thank you so much.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Great advice.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
spending
you.
time
Welcome home. Yeah, welcome home.
It's good to be here, except it's cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
I forget how cold it is here, right? So, very nice to meet you, Jane.
There are many ways to buy the S&P 500, but only one way allows you to own the sectors you like best. Sector Spider ETFs. Is it so radical to be so rational? Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Go to sectorspiders.com for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully. Sector Spiders, the 11 sectors of the S&P 500.